Hey, my name is shawnshawn. I sell art on shawnshawn.co. Today we're going to review Katarina Sakoschek. She runs a course. It's called Creative Consultant Mastery. I think she changes the name here and there, so the name might change by this time you see it. She kind of rolls people in. She has all these photos of herself, and it's kind of day in the life. So it's very slick sales messaging, I think. And, you know, she seems to be very open-minded and everything. The course is $2,600, so it's very expensive. I've had two other courses, and they're both $1,000. I will say there's literally 4 times the amount of material in the $1,000 courses versus this $2,600 course. So it's a little bit skimpy on the course material. I think there's some good material here, but I don't know if it's really worth $2,600. She claims to get you to be able to sell better, and I think, you know, some people may be having that success. It's not really sure because she's cutting, pasting in, saying, oh, this client won. And I'm like, well, they didn't really directly say it. So did they really get that, you know, sale or not? I'm not sure. I know I haven't gotten the sales. She works with other fellow artists. So I don't know if they're there just to help out or they're there to kind of pad the course and make it feel like there's a lot of other artists in the course at the same time. So that was a little bit fishy, I think, because why would you have, you know, another artist assistant? I mean, it makes sense to have an assistant, but for them to pretend that they're part of the course, I just didn't get that part exactly. Let's see. I think there was basically 6 parts to the course. The beginning is kind of very fluffy, spiritual stuff. Like, I don't know, your connection with God or connection with spirituality or whatever. I mean, if you're not emotionally connected with your art, I don't think I can help you, but... And then you start throwing rocks and burning paper and punching at the sky as part of the lessons. You're like, what is this? You know, personally, I was looking for really concrete strategy. And there is some concrete strategy in here about Facebook groups, Facebook messaging. So I think, you know, that's possibly solid in Instagram. The only problem is that strategy relies only on Facebook world. So if Facebook goes down, which it did during the course, it was kind of like a panic across, you know, the course makers. Not obviously... And I didn't panic because I had like 6 other social media. So I'm like, okay, just switch to Twitter this day, switch to, I don't know, Pinterest. You know, I just have other social media. So it's just like, all right, just redirect for that time frame. And they're like, oh my God, all hands on deck. So, and then she suggested, you know, selling at a very high price, which I think can make sense if you're at a certain quality level. But on another hand, it's like, you know, you might be outpricing your market because I've seen other artists that price really low and they sell really well. So I'm like, was that price for, you know, I don't know if I really set my prices right, you know, based on her strategy. And I'm like, well, I'm not selling any better with this pricing strategy. So was that even a good idea? I don't really know. There's a lot of claims about selling to other artists, which is why I signed up for the course. But, you know, I haven't really seen the quality of material where I'm like, well, this looks like it's worth $2,600. And every coaching calls, I felt like they came unprepared. There's 2 other mentors, which is kind of cool. Add extra mentors into the course. One was a marketing media specialist, and another was an energy specialist. So I didn't vibe with the energy specialist because I don't know what the hell the energy is supposed to be about. It's that spirituality kind of fluff in the beginning of the course, which I didn't identify with at all. And this other guy, marketing media specialist, I didn't get the feel that he knew anything more than Katarina beyond organic marketing, which is okay. But if you know anything about social media marketing, especially Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, etc., you're only reaching 2% of your natural fan base. So if you don't use advertising, it just seems very naive. I think her strategy is to get really focused and get a really great use of organic, which is fine, but to not combine that with Facebook advertising or Instagram advertising or YouTube advertising, I just felt like completely, I don't know, very let down. Especially I was supposed to meet with my mentor, and then I'm like, hey, well, let's cover YouTube this time. We kind of covered Instagram, Facebook, and I got a feel for what they were thinking about. And he's like, okay, I'll look that up. And I'm like, look it up? You're supposed to be the marketing media specialist. I mean, if you do marketing and you're claimed to be a social media expert, you got to know freaking YouTube advertising, right? You got to go YouTube advertising, Google advertising, Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising. Those are the basics. And a little bit of Twitter, possibly. And he didn't know YouTube. And I'm like, it's the number 2 search engine in the world, which is owned by Google, who's the number 1 search engine in the world. So it's like, you're telling me you don't even know SEO or anything, kind of, you know, that's why I get the impression right off the bat. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I buy? This is a crock of shit. You know, 2 of the mentors were shit. All right, so another thing that came up in the course is I had a possible licensing deal from a celebrity. I wasn't sure if it was a celebrity scam or the real celebrity. And so I asked the mentor about licensing, and they just suggested move on, don't even bother with licensing. And I was like, how can you be an art mentor if you don't know about licensing? It's a very basic part of printmaking. If you make any kind of prints, you always license the work. So, I think she should have said, like, here's the resources I know about. I think it's a scam. I wouldn't go with it. That's fine. But to just say, like, oh, scrap it totally, don't even look anything up. I don't know anything about it. That's just unprofessional and not a mentor. You should actually know these things. Also on the commissions, someone popped the commissions in the Facebook group, and I was the one that answered first, and I kind of had a good idea about how to do commissions and how to cut on prints, and so I dropped that knowledge. I think the art mentors should have been, quick to add their points as far as, hey, if we do it this way, this is what we suggest. And I didn't really see that. Maybe they just didn't want to walk on my toes. I don't know, but I felt like they didn't know much about commission work at all. Also on how to do prints, and I worked in the business, so I was very knowledgeable and works on paper. So I kind of knowledge like how Picasso started with 10 and then he scaled up to 500 with Shepard Fairey, for example, or Picasso. And I don't think they really had that knowledge inside that group at all with any of the mentors or the art assistant. The art mentor, she's supposed to be in printmaking, but she didn't even know the history of how printmaking scaled up on. I mean, they should have knew this by the back of their hand, in my view. Especially if you study printmaking. If you'd study painting, I wouldn't expect someone to know it if they were just purely a painter. But if you study printmaking, you should kind of know how the printmaking business worked. So I think they just learned from how to make prints in school, and that was about it. So again, another flaw in the course. I was also recommended to stop going to the local art markets just right as they were starting to heat up in Miami, and I was like, okay, I'll roll with it, maybe see how it goes, maybe this course works better. I didn't get any sales in the meantime, a month while I took off, and I probably missed like a couple $100 worth of sales that I could have sold locally and also get to know more people. So I don't know if that was the best advice, so that didn't make any sense at all either. The first coach, the energy coach, I don't know, I just think it's a bunch of crap. So again, it's like, why do we have this coach that has nothing to do with marketing art? The marketing coach was crap, didn't know anything about YouTube marketing, so that was pretty much a letdown. Also, he only knew about organic marketing, same as Katarina, so I was just repeating what her knowledge was. Maybe a little bit more in depth about how to do organic posting, but I really didn't get the feeling he had any idea how to do paid advertising at all. And if you're supposed to be a marketing expert, you should know this at the back of your hand at least. I've had another art mentor that did Facebook exclusively, and he was very well, he knew his shit about Facebook, Instagram. He also knew side topics like how to do your website. And in this course, there's nothing presented about how to do a website better. There's nothing presented outside of organic posting, which is okay if it works. But if not, you're like, why are you paying this much money for only organic posting, which anyone can kind of do? The other thing is the art mentor was on vacation, traveling all over Europe in the middle of the course, and kind of was struggling to put together the meetings. And I think you can travel and do a course, but then it's kind of like, if you're not on top of your game yet, you really shouldn't be traveling in the middle of it. It's kind of ridiculous. So that was a little bit disappointing as too. Is like, you're spending all my money traveling around and then you're not really available to be on the course. It's kind of like, that's just highly irresponsible, I think. On the slides, they would design these slides with these really long verbose things. And if you know anything about slide design from Steve Jobs, he's the #1 presenter of all time in slides. What you would do is you just have 1 to 3 words. The top is you have 3 sentences. And if you studied anything about presentation skills, this is how you do it. You never read from a slide. And she would just read from these long detailed slides. It's like, what's the point of even having a presentation if you're just reading slides? It's completely stupid. So bad slide presentation, just lack of knowledge about how to present, I would say. Also, she worked as a English teacher in South Korea. She was fired from that job. I also work as an English teacher and was fired from that job, so not really saying much. But if you're not really good at teaching, then why are you doing an art mentor course? Are you really up to this? I mean, did you learn anything how to teach? I don't know. And also, after I think it's 5 or 10 weeks, you lose all access to the materials. My other art course, which I had for a year, I still have access to all those materials. I've run through the course twice. This course I kind of went through maybe 1.5 times. Some of the material, you know, all this energy stuff, I just skipped that. It's like, what's the point? I saw that, you know, I went through it once, but I didn't learn anything from it, so I didn't think it was valuable to redo that again. So yeah, but you only have 10 weeks worth of this course, and if you want to review in the future to kind of brush up your skills, you're not going to have access. You're not going to have access to the Facebook group, I'm assuming, as well. So you're kind of just pushed out and then bring in the new group, which is fine if you want to focus on a small group all the time, but it really makes sense to keep your ex-students inside of the Facebook group unless they're dissatisfied. Obviously, I'm dissatisfied, so I wouldn't expect to be kept in the group, but if you're an ex-student, I mean, why wouldn't you be in that Facebook group going forward? I mean, that's kind of a little bit, just not a good approach, I think, on a course. I would do it differently. She kind of knows what she's doing. She's a very smooth talker, I would say. But, you know, I got the feeling every call, like once you get through the course is kind of, there's a material, right? But once you get past that course material, you're just like, what can I help you with? What can I help you with? And I just didn't feel like there was any preparation to the meetings per se. Maybe it was just I wasn't presenting the material, but I was writing notes so she could kind of go through where I was and what I needed. So, you know, I felt like I was putting in my side of the bargain, and then I'm getting kind of this half-built course. I'm getting 2 mentors that are crappy, so I really can't recommend this course. I think some people have success on it, but, you know, I wouldn't recommend it. Oh, the other thing was she claims to have been in the business 10 years. She just graduated 2013 her first degree, and then 2019 her second really art degree. So really, how much selling has she done? She might have done some during her school years, but really everyone knows if you've ever been to fine art school, they just kind of pull your chain and say, oh, that's great, that's the best thing ever, and you might be making pure crap, right? So I wouldn't consider that experience as far as selling wise, right? So I'd say she has 1 or 2 years of experience, and then she has 1 year teaching abroad in Korea, and then she came back. So she really has like 2-3 years experience just selling artwork, which, you know, that's fine if you sell it as 2-3 years experience, but to say you have 10 years when you really don't, and then you pitch it to someone like me who've been selling art for 15 years and then claim you're selling 10, I'm like, all right, she's a little younger. And then you get in there, you just don't feel like she knows anything beyond marketing organically, which is fine if it works, but if that's all you have, one trick in the bag kind of thing, it's like, is that really worth $2,600? I would say the course is worth $500 to $600. I did approach them at the end. I was like, hey, by the way, you know, I'm not really feeling the course. You know, 2 of the mentors I didn't even use. I don't think they were very valuable, and, you know, can I get some kind of discount? Like, no, I don't do any refunds, which is fine. I guess you can have that policy, but, you know, I've been ignored the last 2 weeks of the course, which I paid for out of the $2,600. So that's, you know, a good $500-$600 that they're just ignoring me and not even giving me the coaching that I paid for. So I'm like, so they didn't give me my last 2-week coaching. They didn't do 2 coaches worth, kind of crappy. So for me, it's like maybe I got $1,000 value out of the course, or $500 value out of the course out of $2,600. That's just a no-go in my book. So yeah, I can't recommend it, and that's my take on creative consulting coaching.